Hello everyone, welcome to another example of SAP CPI real-time examples. In this example, I'll try to cover a new interface which is called Order Data Conversion and Integration. It is a file-to-file interface in SAP CPI. Let's begin. This presentation PDF and all the material that is necessary for this demonstration, I have uploaded them to GitHub. The link is in the description. Please download all the material and practice the demonstration in your local machine. Let's get started. Now pause the video here and try to read the business requirement end to end. While reading, try to understand what is the business problem and what are the systems involved and what are the explicit business requirements from the customer. At the end, try to read the business rationale, which means what is the value that customers would get after implementing this interface. Try to spend as much as time in this so that you get the business requirement clearly for the implementation. Let's now try to draw a high-level integration flow for the given business requirement. We have an e-commerce system, which is sender system here, and we have partner systems like partner system A, partner system B. E-commerce system is sending order details in XML format to SAP CPI. In SAP CPI, we have a requirement to send the message to partner systems at the same time in CSV format and JSON format. Also, there is a need for XML validation in SAP CPI. In case of validation failure, SAP CPI has to trigger an exception and write the error records to a error store. So at a high level, this is a file-to-file interface and this is a one-to-many interface. In this demonstration, we'll try to cover below topics. We will try to design, develop, deploy and test end-to-end integration flow, and we'll try to cover palette functions like sender and receiver participants, parallel multicast, converters like XML to JSON, XML to CSV. We will try to use XML validation, and we will try to also implement exception subprocess, and finally we will try to use start, error start, and end message steps. From the adapter's perspective, we will try to use file adapter both on sender side and receiver side. I would like to quickly walk you through the BDAT aspects of this interface. BDAT stands for Business, Data, Application and Technology. If you look at the table, so we have B's there, which means the business process related information. So we're talking about a order to cash interface, and this comes under order data conversion and integration subprocess. We have a sender system called e-commerce system. At the receiver side, we have multiple partner systems. At a data model level, the sender system is sending order data. On the receiver side, the partner systems also expects order data in different formats, which is CSV and JSON files. From the application sides, the e-commerce systems communicates with XML files, and the receiver systems like partner system A, partner system B, they talk in terms of JSON or CSV files. Let's now talk about T stands for technology. In this example, we can assume the e-commerce system can be a Java application which supports file communication through FTP Server. On the receiver side, the partner systems also supports files through FTP Server. In this interface, we'll try to use SAP CPI as a middleware or integration broker. And if you look at non-functional requirements stands for NFR, we have a mapping, just one-to-one mapping to keep it simple, and the complexity is kind of medium. And the data volumes, we're talking about 1 to 10,000 orders per day. We have an explicit requirement to handle errors in case of XML validation failure. So this is all about BDAT, B-D-A-T. If you want to try this end-to-end scenario, you need below tools. You need to have access to SAP CPI system. If you don't have one instance, please try to create a free trial account and get a SAP CPI instance to practice this scenario. You should have access to a FTP server, which will simulate the e-commerce system and the partner systems. And you need a FTP client, for example, Filezilla or any other FTP client to manipulate the files. And as always, I need your commitment and an undistracted mind to complete this scenario. In this slide, I would like to give you some tips and pointers in the areas of file handlings with SAP CPI. In an interview, the interviewer might ask about how many files you handle, how big are they, because Always when you work with files, the size of the files really matters. For example, he or she might also ask what kind of issues you faced when you're working with FileAdapter. You can also get some questions around the special characters, because special characters is always an issue when it comes to integrations between systems. What kind of encoding you worked to fix the special characters issue, and what kind of special characters you handled with the file interfaces. And you might also get questions around file security. For example, what kind of encryption and decryption algorithms you have used, and how did you set up FTPS or SFTP for your integrations. These are the high-level pointers that you might get asked in the interviews. So be prepared. In this slide, I would like to give you some integration architecture tips when you're working with files. When you work with files, you always use security protocols between the systems. And you always also have a note of what kind of files and what are the file sizes, because size of the file really matters when you're working with interface. And also, you need to consider what are the performance optimizations that you need to include in SAP CPI to optimize the file handling. Let's start the demonstration. In the first step, I will show you how you can set up FTP Server and Cloud. For this demonstration, I have used a SaaS solution called SFTP Cloud IO for this FTP setup. I found this SaaS solution very intuitive and easy to use. Try to set up FTP Server on Cloud, and you can use this FTP Server for 7 days for free. Now I will demonstrate how you can create FTP Server on Cloud by using sftpcloud.io. Let's log into sftpcloud.io and log in or register. After you log in, you can see this dashboard. On the left hand corner, there is a plus new FTP instance button. If you click that button, it will create you a FTP server on cloud in a single click. For this demonstration, I already created a SFTP instance called outoftheboxea SAP, as you can see in this screen. If you click on this, you can see the dashboard where you can see the server and users and overview and all the file manager details. So these are the users we have. If you click on edit user, you can see the host name and username and password, and ports. One is SFTP port and the other one is FTPS port. These details you need for your integration. Copy the host name, username and password and port name for your CPI integration. This is very simple and straightforward. With a single click, you can create SFTP instance on cloud. And this is valid for 7 days. You can do all your experiments by using your SAP CPI and this FTP server. Now I will show you how we can use Filezilla to connect to FTP server. Once you have the credentials from FTP Cloud, go to Site Manager, then enter the protocol and this host name and the user ID and password that you received from SFTP Cloud. Once you enter all the details, click on the connect button. Once you click that button, you can log into FTP server, and you can see there, I can see all the folders that I created on FTP server already. You can see there. So we have input, we have partner A, we have partner B, partner A and partner B, and error. So I created 4 folders simulating the senders and receivers. As you can see, input is e-commerce systems folder, partner A and partner B is respective partner systems folders, and error folder is error stores folder. So I created 4 folders for this purpose. And you can also see archived folder there, which actually stores processed files in the integration scenario. I will show you how we can use this archive folder in SAP CPI interface. First, you need to create FTP security material. So go to SAP CPI, there create security material, create user credentials. Now give some name for this user credential, for example FTP server credentials. And give some description. And I'm gonna set the user ID and password that I got from SFTP Cloud. Just copy paste the user ID and password from the SFTP Cloud. So these credentials are used in your interface in SAP CPI. Copy the username and password and repeat the password. Now click on deploy to deploy to SAP CPI instance. Once that is done, copy this, and now I want to test this SFTP connection from my CPI instance. Let's now go to let's go to the overview and now click on the connectivity test, click on FTP. So now enter the server name, copy the server name, enter there. I'm going to use encryption explicit FTPS and select the credential name I just created and click on send. Once that is done, SAP CPI will try to connect to the remote system. Now you can see it is able to establish the connection and it actually downloaded the certificates. Now download the certificates because you need to upload them to the key store in your SAP CPI. So you can add them to the key store by click on this add certificate, give it a name and select the file from your local machine. So give a name and select it. So I already uploaded these 3 certificates, so I'm not going to upload them now. So just cancel and cancel. You can see in the background, you see there are 3 certificates there. So go back to key store. You see there are 3 certificates there. Yeah, so there are 3 certificates here. So I already upload the key store. Now go back to overview. Now we are ready to do the integration flow development. Let's go to integration flow editor. So click on the home and click on these integrations. So I already created a package for it. I called it as scenario 2 order data conversion integration. Open that package. Yes. So in this, I created an integration flow called, it's like an artifact. Okay, this is the order data integration flow. I go to artifacts. So here you have the integration flow that I already created. So let me open this integration flow in the integration flow editor. So this is how you add integration flow. Open this integration flow that I already created. Now you can see, so this is the integration flow that we are going to cover in this demonstration. Okay. So let's now talk about the sender side. So basically we'll start with the sender side configuration. So let's start with the sender side development. So you can add one sender and we name it as e-commerce because that is the sender in our business requirement. So name it as e-commerce. Then when you do a connection between the sender and the start message, it will ask you for a file adapter. Select the file adapter as file, which is FTP. So this is the general information, FTP and file protocol, and this is sender. Click on the source. Now let's now add the details from the FTP server. So this is the FTP server host name. Copy paste from the SFTP cloud, and you need to add the port, which is 21 here. And encryption, I'm going to use explicit FTPS, and the credential name which you already created in the previous step. Just copy paste the credential name here. So I just kept the default values, the timeout, maximum reconnect attempts and recovery delay and automatically disconnect. And you see this directory here, which is scenario 2/input. So that is my input directory, and the files will be in the format of input_.xml. So you can see here. So that is my source, that is the e-commerce platform's source folder. So this is my FTP server. Go to processing now. Now here I just kept the standard settings as it is, but at the end in the post processing I have kept the file setting to move file. Click on move. We can also delete it, we can do different operations, but in this scenario I'm going to use move file, and I specified move it to archived folder after the file is processed. So this is what the setting is for. So once the processing is done, move it to archived folder. So that's the purpose of this setting. Okay, alright. Now scheduler, this is important now because you need to specify to SAP CPI when should the file should be picked, what is the frequency of the poll. So this is what we specify in the scheduler. You can see here I specified as daily. You can have different setting here. So I want to do it for every 30 seconds starting from 0 hours to 24 hours, and I'm going to use a specific time zone, that is use UTC 0. So you can set different time zones as well. So this is scheduler setting. So finally we have done sourcing, processing and scheduler. So these three tabs we covered here. As you can see, once you schedule it, you can see a small icon there, the timer icon, which represents it's scheduled. So that is the server-side configuration. Save it. Now I'm going to talk about integration process design and development. So here I'm going to add first step as XML validation, because we need to validate the XML, the inbound XML, right? So add the XML validation step, and under the validation, so you need to select the source. Is the validation coming from integration flow or header? Here I'm going to use integration flow. Now you need to specify the XML schema here. So you need to specify to SAP CPI which schema I should validate against the inbound message. So select the schema here, order validation XSD, which I already have. So this is already in the GitHub. You can download from the GitHub for your use. So I added the XML schema here. Let me open it. Let me show you. So this is the XSD format of the inbound XML. So these are the nodes I expect. These are the elements I expect from inbound XML. So go back to the integration process again. So the validation step is done. Only two changes here. What is the source and what is the XML schema here. So I'm just going to unselect this, prevent exception on failure, because I don't want to do any exception here at the moment. Now I'm going to add a parallel multicast, because in the requirement the client suggested to send this file at the same time, which is at the parallel instance the file has to reach to the partner systems. That is the reason why I'm using parallel multicast. Let's now add a parallel multicast there. It is simply a splitter. Basically it splits and sends the message to the target systems at the same time. And now I'm going to add the conversion palette functions, which is XML to CSV, and I'm going to add XML to JSON. So I added the XML to CSV palette function and XML to JSON palette function. Let's now configure the XML to CSV converter. So now here I just gave a name, and now you need to specify what is the root element of your inbound XML. So if you look at the inbound XML, so I have this order details as a root. So let me go back to XML. So I will show you now. Here you see the sample inbound XML, and if you look at this XML here, so we have this order details as a root node. So basically that's what I need to read the values under the order details node. So let me go back here. So slash order details, and I want to have a file separator as the field separator as semicolon. So this is the order details here again. So I will use the same thing in the path, and then in the field separator I'm going to separate the fields by using a semicolon. And I would like to also include the header in the file. Select the option there. Now the CSV file is done. The XML to CSV converter is done. I'm going to add the connection between the splitter, parallel multicast and the XML CSV converter. Now I'm going to add XML to JSON converter. XML to JSON converter. So select this one and then drag and drop into this line. So I'm going to configure this at the moment. So here in the XML to JSON converter, so there's nothing much. Basically here you specify which separator you want to use here. I want to use a colon, semicolon, sorry, and I'm going to use a standard setting for the output. So there's nothing much changed here. So with that, I completed the XML to JSON converter setting. Okay, now we need to add some exception handling process, because the customer asked for exception handling. So let us add exception sub process. So click on this exception sub process, which will create this block here with a error start and end event. So I just renamed it as XML validation exception process. And now I'm going to add XML to CSV converter here, because I need to send the error records to the file in a CSV format. So I just added the step there. So let me see the configuration here. So same settings, /order details is a root node, and semicolon is a separator, and include the headers is the setting. So just save it. So with this, so basically we created the integration process with the validation step and a parallel multicast and a XML to CSV converter and JSON converter and an exceptions process which includes XML to CSV converter. So with this we complete that. Let's save it. Now I will try to demonstrate the receiver side development of this integration flow. So I will add 3 receivers, basically one receiver for partner A, partner B, and error store. So there are 3 receivers in this scenario. So I'm just going to add 3 receivers there. Okay. Then when you drag a connection between the end step to the receiver, it will open up a dialog where you need to select the file, because we are going to use the file adapter here. So select the file there, and I'm going to show you the settings for the receiver file adapter. Here you see in the director I used partner A, output A, that is my receiver system 1. Okay, and output is the target folder. So that is a setting folder I created here, and the file name is output.csv, and add append timestamp, because I want to add a timestamp every time the file gets created, and add the FTP server name, and encryption. I just used plain FTP, no encryption, but ideally we should not use it in the real-time scenarios. And also I mentioned the credentials there. So now in the processing setting, I used selected the normal settings there, and with the append setting there. So with this we created the receiver side of partner A. Let's now look at the receiver side of partner B. Same here, we are going to create a FTP adapter communication. So if you look at the target here, and the directory is here partner B and output, because this is my partner B system, right? So here partner B and output folder is my target folder. Okay, that being said, let's go back here. So now the file format is .json, and I want to add a timestamp for sure for every file that's been created, and add the FTP server hostname and credentials. Here also I'm using plain FTP, no encryption, which is not right, but for simplicity I have used it. And then I just kept the remaining settings as it is. Here. Now go to the processing tab. So here also I used same thing, but here used a settings called override. I just want to override the existing file. Okay. And finally we're going to create another receiver side FTP adapter for the error store. So double click on this and create a FTP adapter again here, and then go to the target, and that directory is going to be different here. So I'm going to use error/output as an output folder here. So that is my error store, which stores all the erroneous records which are a result of the validation failure. So I'll give it a name, error.csv, and I'm not going to add any timestamp because I want to append all the records to a single file. So host is the same, and everything is the same as the other receiver side adapters. Go to the processing, so I'm appending all the records to it. Okay, that's it. So this is now we completed all the steps for this integration flow. Just a tip, you can use this formatting dots. You can format in a vertical direction or a horizontal direction, which is pretty nice. So try it out. So it really arranges your process quite nicely and neatly, but be aware, and before you do anything, save it so that you can always undo it. Okay, yeah, so that's it for this integration flow development. So just to recap, basically we created so just save it here, and so if you look at this thing, yeah, let's now quickly look at it. Deployment status not deployed yet, and general setting, runtime configuration. You can see the error configuration and what are the differences we are using. We are using order validation. Let me delete this artifact. I don't need this at the moment. So this order validation XML, that is the references we are using in this scenario. And problems, these warnings, we can ignore them at the moment, and deployment status is not deployed yet. Okay, so now save it and deploy it. Yes, click on yes. Okay, let's now look at the deployment and testing of this interface. Okay, so once this is deployed, let's go to the monitoring now. For example, click on this and click on monitor integrations. As you can see here, this tile will show you the started processes. You can see the integration process is deployed and started, and you can see there basically it is polling successfully from the FTP server, which is pretty nice because everything is successful end to end now, at least from the connections perspective. So you can also see all the details there. Here you can set the log configuration actually, so you can set different levels. Here log, you can see at the moment default is info. You can really set trace and debug to see more information. I want to show you the trace here. Click on the trace and it will set the trace thing for 1 hour approximately. So let's now give it a test. Okay, let's now go back to the Filezilla because I want to send a file. I want to simulate a sending. You can see there are 2 files which is already which I already include them in the GitHub. You can use them. So this is the validated file and one is invalid file. You can see here it's invalid file and it has an invalid element called invalid field which is not present in the validation XML. So these are the fields at the moment. We have different fields like this in the validation XML, but in the invalid field I added a new invalid element called invalid field because it should fail the scenario. That's what we are expecting actually. So now if you look at the validated XML, the valid file XML, you see here this is the valid XML. It is actually complying with the validation XSD. Yeah, so now let's go back to the, so this is XSD we have, and this is the real valid XML. Let's go back to the FTP Filezilla. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag and drop the valid XML to the input folder. Okay, so just click on so there's nothing at the moment, so everything is empty. Go to the input folder again, drag and drop the first file which is valid orders file. Okay, let me drag and drop here. So it's dragged and dropped and now it is in the FTP server. It is copied from the local machine to the FTP server. That is the job of this Filezilla. So now let me refresh again because I've kept 30 seconds time delay. Let me refresh again. Nothing is happening. 30 seconds actually, so let's see, let's give it a time. So let me go back to the let me refresh again. Okay, let's go back to the integration monitoring again. You see there is one more one completed success message, and now input is here. Let me go back to the monitoring. So you can see there's one completed message, and here you can see there's one message that has been completed end to end successfully. And if you click on this trace, you can click on this trace now, you can see more details because you enable the logging as trace. You see the complete steps being documented and captured here. If you click on each step, you can really see what is happening in that step. And if you go to the log content, You see the steps, more details here. So the status is completed, and what is the FTP URL that is being used internally, and what are the other parameters, for example a set property, other properties we have set. And you can see the header information, more all the camel specific information and SAP information, and exchange properties. There are many exchange properties documented here, and you can actually see the payload, basically what is being saved to the file. See, this is actually the file, the JSON file that is being saved on the FTP server, which is pretty nice. I just want to show you the trace mechanism here. Let me go back. So now let me refresh again. So now you see the file is gone from the FTP server. Let me go back to the archived. You see the file is being moved to the, it's already moved to the FTP server, which is pretty good. So inbound processing is done and it is saved. Let me go back to the partner output. Because you see there is a file that is being created. It's now created successfully, and also partner B, and you can see a JSON file that is created. So the inbound is done, the outbound is also done successfully. So let me get these files from FTP server to local machine. Just drag and drop from left to right. So now these files are on your machine now, okay? Because I want to have a quick look how the file looks on the FTP server. Click on open. So this output CSV file, okay, now I can see the CSV file in the format that I was expecting as per the business requirement. And let me also have a quick look on the JSON file as well. Let me look at the JSON file, okay. Click on that and click on the JSON file, and here you see let me format it for a bit. So let me format this document, and you see this is the JSON file that is being sent to the partner B system at the same time, actually. Yeah, that is important. That's good. So now the file is there. Pretty good. So now we'll try to simulate the error mechanism. Basically we want to create a invalid scenario by sending a wrong inbound XML. So let me drag and drop the invalid XML which has the wrong element there. So let me drag and drop here. So these files is also there in the GitHub. You can download them from the GitHub. So let me go back to monitoring. 30 seconds, we need to wait. So it's not yet picked up. Okay, now it's picked up. Let me go back to the archived, and in the archived you see it's been already moved. So you see there are two completed messages. Click on that, and now if you go back to the error output folder, okay, let me try again. Let me draw the invalid XML again. Let's see how this tile gets updated automatically once the file is getting processed in SAP CPI. This is a Fury app tile. 3, yes. So now 3 messages got processed. So the latest message is completed. So, now we can see all the details, and you can see the validation problems. Click on this validation document. It will clearly indicate why the validation failed and what caused this validation failure. So that's actually good information for you, right, to understand why the validation failed. You can see there. So basically it is actually complaining about the invalid field that I added as extra in the invalid inbound XML. That's good. So the validation is failed and the file got generated in the error store. So this is the output, the validation output. Yeah, that is a field that is causing the validation failure. Okay, good. So we completed both the positive and negative cases with valid XML and invalid XML, and now you see how the exception got raised and how the file got created in the error store. So now these are the errors CSV file. If you open that, so let me open the error store file as well. You can see the header and the line item of the error record. So we completed the end-to-end testing and the implementation of the interface. Congratulations. So just to recap, so we created an interface with the multiple single sender and multiple receivers, and we have used converters, and we have validator, and we have used exception block. So we completed quite a much in this scenario. So I have used on the sender side explicit FTPS, and on the receiver side I have used plain vanilla FTP server without encryption, which is not the real case. You should always use the security protocol when you are working with FTP server. Remember that. I just want to show you the two flavors here. So try not to use this plain FTP in the real production systems, but for your testing, yes, of course you can use it.